And joining us on the line right now is our good friend Bret Baier from the Fox News Channel. Bret, how are you?
Hey, good morning, guys.
All right, now, I heard a rumor, but I'm not sure it's true. Were you at CPAC yesterday?
I popped over there midday.
Yeah.
To kind of get a flavor
I heard that
of the
you
place.
had like a rock star greeting in the hallways.
To get a flavor of the place, listen to a speech or two, and it is fun to go the hallways there. You know what I was surprised at was how young it is. And I mentioned that on the panel last night. I mean, there were lots and lots of young people, and I did take a lot of pictures, which I was happy to do.
Yeah. Was that you in the tri-corner hat and the Gadsden flag, dressed like you had just come off Valley Forge, Bret Baier?
No, that wasn't me, Larry.
Looked a lot like you. You said you popped in and heard some speeches. What'd you hear and what'd you like in terms of, not like in terms of the content, but in terms of a political profile that you think is sort of catching the imagination of the crowd here?
Yeah, I listened. I saw the end of Chris Christie's speech and the fallout, the analysis of it, and then I caught Mike Lee speaking live, and I think I saw Ted Cruz before I left.
Let's talk Christie for a second, Bret, because going in, a lot of people were skeptical of whether he could win over conservative people here. A lot of people don't consider him a classic conservative. What did you think of the reception?
I thought he was received fairly well. I mean, it wasn't the booming applause that others received in some of the speeches, but the substance of the speech, I think, was well received in the hall. I mean, I do think it was the coming out party after all the controversy, and there is some in that conservative hall feeling, I think, that Christie gets some points. The more the left beats on him and focuses and obsesses on him,
right.
the better he's received in places like CPAC, I think. So I do think that speech went over pretty well. And I think the recurrent line that he's used before but went over well was we can talk all day, but until you start winning and putting W's on the board, that's the difference.
Yeah, and that's the discussion. That as one reporter in town put it, the discussion that's going on between the purists and the pragmatists. Do you see it that way?
Well, I do. I mean, listen to Ted Cruz's speech, and he's, I think, very polished. I was interested to see his delivery, and he does it very well, and he walks around that stage and doesn't use a teleprompter, and he makes a compelling case and talks about, the fact of, you don't have a President Dole or a President McCain or a President Romney.
Yeah.
And he makes a case for standing on principle. I think, that will be the battle of the primaries and caucus states. And I think you'll hear from Senator Rand Paul today. What will be interesting to see is how CPAC divides between Rand Paul and Ted Cruz.
Yeah, that will be very interesting. Ukraine, what do you think about the situation there?
Well, I think it's deteriorating as far as the chance that Crimea will ever be anything but Russia's.
Really, you think that ship has sailed at this point?
Wow.
I mean, it seems like it's going the other way.
Yeah.
You have this referendum that's scheduled for March 16th. Not that that's anything in international law that should stand up, but you have the people there, the parliament voting. You have Russia essentially saying that they think they should have it, and you really don't have the EU putting the clamps on, as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and how can they when they were reliant on the energy that they get supplied from Russia?
So, unless there is some major energy behind-the-scenes deal that we don't know about yet, where the U.S. is going to step up natural gas to Europe to kind of put the screws to Russia on that side. And, there's some indications, talk about that yesterday on Capitol Hill. But if that is not happening behind the scenes, I just don't see where the leverage is to get Crimea out of there.
But looking at the whole situation, if somebody would say, looks like the United States got caught a little flat-footed on this.
I mean, I think that's a fair criticism. I mean, I think it's a fair criticism to say we as a country got flat-footed. I don't know, for the people who say, President Obama didn't handle it right from the beginning, I think, I don't know any president that, there wasn't a ton more that he could have done in the early days.
Well, but it's interesting, Bret, because I heard on your very show, Charles Krauthammer, on your All-Star panel, when this first broke out during the Olympics, Charles Krauthammer said, these guys are in debt. They need a bailout. Russia's going to fill that void. The EU, along with United States leadership, it's a small investment to make. Let's help bail them out and move them closer to the West. Instead, the Russian tanks move into Crimea, and suddenly, what did we see yesterday from the president? We saw $1 billion aid package. What if that had been done a few weeks ago, like Charles Krauthammer suggested?
Yeah. I don't think there was an appetite for a bailout of Ukraine. I mean, I just don't think back then there was. And frankly, I don't think there would be an appetite on the Republican side for that.
Yeah.
In our current economic state.
Sure.
And now there is, in retrospect, hindsight's 2020.
Here at I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, here at CPAC, we're picking up some wind. A lot of talk about the IRS investigation, which seems to be going nowhere for the moment. At least it looks on the surface as if it's going nowhere. The Benghazi investigation still going nowhere. We're getting a sense that there is a building sense on Capitol Hill that they may actually put together some kind of special panel to look into these matters. What are you hearing?
I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think more so on Benghazi than IRS. I think the IRS seems like it's after this past hearing is not going the way that the committee had wanted.
But there sure were some interesting documents released by ISA on all that, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I really think that they thought that Lerner was going to testify.
Yeah, what was that all about? Well, what's your sense of what happened there? Because, he went on Fox News Sunday, ISA did, and said, she's going to testify. And then, by the time it came time for her to testify, it had gone back the other way. Do you get any sense of what was going on behind the scenes there?
I mean, whether she was pressured in some way, whether they had a problem with them talking about it, I don't know. But from what I hear is that just by mentioning her testimony, it turned the situation, and they had a completely different witness come that Wednesday.
Wow.
And it's for the people that I've talked to, is mind-boggling.
All right. Well, Bret Baier, always a pleasure to have you, my friend.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.